Hello there, folks. My name is Spoonks, and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Jackass Forever, making $5.2 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $47 million and a worldwide total of $60 million. So this weekend, the movie had a much better hold than last weekend, falling just 33%, which is very good. And from here on forth, I can see the film continuing to maintain these strong holds, unless if it loses a bunch of theaters in the future or somewhere at the end of its theatrical run. But I digress. The movie is still doing very well despite falling to number 5, thanks to its very cheap budget of $10 million. It's insane how much this movie has made over its budget. It's already surpassed $60 million worldwide, and it's about to pass $50 million domestically, which is very good for a comedy like this. I can see it surpassing $70 million worldwide and even $80 million worldwide in the future. And where it stands in the Jackass franchise, once again, don't think it's gonna reach the totals of Jackass 3D or Bad Grandpa, and I'm a little hesitant on where it will stand against Jackass number 2. I just have to see where it is in the future, but I can definitely see it coming close or even surpassing the first Jackass, which, given how things are and where these movies usually end up making, I think that's a very solid number to be on. This movie is still doing very well for itself. Word of mouth is very strong for it, and I'm glad that the movie has made as much as it has. Not much more to add on here, just job well done for Jackass Forever. Number 4 was Death on the Nile, making $6.5 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $26 million and a worldwide total of $78 million. So while it had a better than expected hold, in my opinion, of just dropping off 49% from last weekend, which, given any movie, that's a solid hold for any movie, really, it's still not enough to save this movie, really. It's only $5 million away from $30 million domestically, and since the movie cost $90 million, that is not a very good total to be on. I just think the fact of the matter is that Murder on the Orient Express didn't really resonate well with major audiences. It wasn't really all that remembered, and I don't think the marketing really sold that it was a sequel to that movie, outside of, hey, it's that one dude with the mustache from that movie that came out a couple years ago, remember? And I would say that there is no way of helping this movie out right now if we were just looking at the domestic numbers, as internationally and worldwide, this movie is actually doing a lot better than one might expect. As I said earlier, the film is at $78 million worldwide, which just puts it $12 million away from its $90 million budget, which, in all honesty, is a lot better than I thought this movie was going to do, and seeing it about to cross that is a very promising indicator of how well this movie is doing. So while it's not doing gangbusters or anything, and it's not really breaking new ground in terms of box office, I can definitely see it making its budget back and being a modest hit thanks to the international market and the worldwide totals. They're definitely doing the heavy lifting when it comes to helping this movie out. Domestically, it's probably big disaster. Well, not a disaster, but a disappointment, to say the least. At most, I can see this movie hitting $45 million domestically, and even I'll admit that's a bit reaching way too far from the branch here. But even though it's not faring much domestically, it's got a shot at being a modest hit. So we'll see where it goes from here internationally, and maybe it has a shot at doing well and maybe even doubling its budget thanks to that. But right now we're looking at a modest hit, and right now where this movie is at, I think that's more than you can ask for. Number 3 was SpiderMan No Way Home, making $7.4 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $772 million and a worldwide total of $1.8 billion. So out of all of the videos we have done discussing this movie, you would have thought this one would have been the video where we discuss Spider-Man taking its biggest hit thus far, since its leading man, Tom Holland, has another big movie, which we'll talk about later, that would have probably stolen this movie's fans and audience away from it. But that was not the case. In fact, it actually kind of helped this movie out, as it went up from number 4 last weekend to number 3, as we've clearly stated previously, and only dipped 1% from last weekend. That is insane. I have not seen a movie do this well on this series since probably The Croods: A New Age back from 2020. This is truly a behemoth of a movie, and we briefly discussed this last week, and now it has officially been confirmed, as this has now officially surpassed Avatar to become the 3rd highest grossing film of all time domestically, just behind Avengers Endgame and Star Wars The Force Awakens. Once again, don't think it's gonna top Avengers Endgame. That just seems way too far out of reach for this movie, but I think given where it's at, I think it's got a shot at getting close or even getting to the $800 million domestic point, which is just crazy that this movie was able to do that. I thought we would have been done like maybe a month ago, but no, this movie keeps on going, and I can even see it hitting 2 billion because it just keeps on going thus far, and I don't know when it's gonna stop. I'm maybe with Batman probably, but that also could see me being wrong once again. So I keep saying once again, but overall, yeah, it's another weekend of Spider-Man dominating the box office. I don't know when it will leave. I don't know when it will take a big hit. I'm still very happy that it's doing well, but I'm also perplexed at how well it's doing. But once again, still one hell of a run at the box office so far. We'll see where it goes from here, I guess. Number 2 was Dog, making 17 million this weekend domestically and 18 million worldwide. So this movie actually surpassed my expectations and many people's expectations, as I think many of us were expecting a very low opening for this movie. I didn't really see a huge marketing campaign for it. There was certainly promotion, but not to the point where I would say it was a good campaign, but apparently it was to many others, as it actually made a lot more than I thought it would. I was expecting at least not the very least, but the most 10 million, and the fact that this movie was able to make over that and then some is honestly quite impressive. And add on to the fact that the movie is already a big hit. The movie only costed 15 million to make, and now all it needs to do is double that, which it's certainly going to do in the coming weeks. This is the type of stuff I like to see on this show, where usually on the show we see like all the disappointments or the movies that have met our expectations, but the ones that overperform and do so much better than we initially thought are the ones that make me the most happiest and interested in discussing, because it's unbelievable how this movie was able to do so. Reviews were great and audiences seem to generally like it. It has an A- on Cinema Score, which is very impressive, and now I'm curious to see where it goes from here. What will the drop-off be? How will it do in the coming weeks? Because March is a pretty slow month for movies, outside of like Batman maybe. But yeah, not a lot of competition in March, or even next week, which we'll talk about at the end of the video. But yeah, now I'm interested to see where this movie goes from here, as it's already overperformed, and it looks like it's gonna be a relatively sleeper hit. So sorry about the pun, but it looks like Dog is gonna be the underdog of the box office so far. I'm impressed. What else can I say? And finally, let's end the video off with the number one movie of the weekend, and that was Uncharted, making $51 million this weekend domestically and $139 million worldwide. So let's just get this stuff out of the way. Obviously, this is the biggest opening weekend of the year so far, topping Scream 5's opening by actually quite a big margin, as a matter of fact. And in terms of movies based off of video games, this is the fourth biggest opening for any of those types of movies, topping both Rampage's 35 million opening weekend back in 2018 and the Angry Birds movie's 38 million opening weekend from 2016, and it sits behind Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, and Sonic the Hedgehog. And like Dog, this actually surpassed many people's expectations as to where it was going to land this weekend, as many people were expecting the mid-30s and maybe even the late 40s for this opening weekend. And I can't say I'm one of those, because this is honestly on par with how well I thought this movie was going to do this weekend. The marketing was great. Tom Holland has a huge fan base and is really big right now. And in terms of action blockbusters that people want to see, sorry Moonfall, this was probably the only one that general audiences had the most interest in. I saw a lot of buzz for this than stuff like, once again, Moonfall and the 355. There was just a lot more excitement and anticipation for this, add on to the fact that it's based off of a very popular video game, and you have, what in my opinion, a solid opening weekend and a solid movie to open right now. This is, of course, once again a very strong start for this movie. It costed $120 million, and thanks to both domestic and international box office opening weekends, it has surpassed that and is on its way to $150 million worldwide, which is definitely going to surpass very soon. And domestically, I can see it becoming one of the very first movies of the year to surpass 100 million domestically, which is once again very solid. I'm sure everyone who saw this movie and liked it is very happy. I'm sure Tom Holland and Sony are happy, because now they both don't have to rely on SpiderMan for the money. They have a new franchise now to compete with other successful video game franchises like Sonic the Hedgehog, which is going to be very big, but that we'll wait on that in April. But as for right now, Uncharted is off to a very strong start. We'll see how the drop-off is and word of mouth is for the film. Audiences seem to generally like this more than critics. It has a B+ on Cinema Score, which is a little concerning, but again, it's based off of a video game franchise, so it has a devoted fan base, and I think this is serviceable enough word of reaction to this type of movie, and I'm curious to see where it'll go from here, of course, given its very solid opening weekend. But as for right now, it's off to a very strong start, so good job, Uncharted. And those were the top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, and normally this would be the part of the video where I discuss the upcoming releases and where I think they would land in the top 5. And while there are specifically 2, those being Studio 666 and Cyrano, I am not sure if they're going to make enough to crack the top 5, given the very minimal marketing I've seen for either of them and the lack of buzz and audience interest in either of them. So there might not be a box office chat next for this upcoming week, so don't be surprised if you don't see anything next Tuesday. But if those 2 movies do land in the top 5, or there's a switch up in the current top 5, like if one movie overtakes another next weekend, I'll be discussing those movies and how well they did for sure on the next box office chat. And that's gonna do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you liked this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.